He's gone from bi to completely gay. We go to pick him up, and this group home has given him feminine clothing. He's wearing a choker. He's wearing an off-the-shoulder pink shirt. He's wearing his hair in a very feminine fashion.
Hello everyone. Today we are diving into a controversial issue in Quebec. The Youth Protection DPJ has the authority to intervene in your family even if you believe you are acting in your child's best interest. With recent scandals within the agency, like allegations of misconduct by DPJ staff and a history of mistakes, including premature child removals and prolonged traumatic family separations, the mother that I'm speaking with today has many concerns. She wishes to remain anonymous to protect her 14-year-old son's case. But as practicing Catholics and homeschoolers, they had enrolled their child in a Catholic school after the pandemic. And that's where things took a drastic turn. The mother introduced her son to a group of homeschooling families for socialization, but soon after, he became aggressive, ran away multiple times, and began identifying as bisexual, then homosexual, and cross-dressing. Behaviors, the family says, came out of nowhere. The DPJ's 12-page report details the son's temporary custody with a family that his parents say has questionable values. And the parents have laid out conditions for his return home. But Trudeau's new criminal code amendment, through Bill C-4, if a parent does not promote and conform to their child's new gender identity, they face criminal charges and even jail, leaving these parents in a vulnerable situation. The child refuses to meet his parents' condition and say they are too strict and unaccepting his identity. The maternal grandmother believes the son is searching for himself and influenced by his new friends, and note concerns about the screen addiction as the parents raise as a concern. The DPJ's report concludes that the child's safety is at risk due to psychological mistreatment and excessive control by the parents, citing higher vulnerability for LGBT youth, who are more prone to bullying and discrimination. Joining me now is the mother, deeply concerned about her child's future in this complex situation.
We had moved to Quebec at this point. We started in Ottawa and moved to Quebec. We found a homeschool co-op group. So we went to co-op group. We got close to many families. My son enjoyed himself there for a time. At about a year afterwards, he starts acting stranger and stranger. But then he started being very recluse and always being on his screens, even though we were seeing people in person 2-3 times a week. He was constantly wanting to be on screens talking to his friends. So we opened a Discord account, and he was able to talk to his friends on a regular basis, even though we weren't seeing them in person. And then he started complaining even more about schooling. Making him work was worse and worse and worse. He ended up getting more and more aggressive. So he was angry. He would throw fits. So as a parent, when he wouldn't do his homework, or he would refuse to do his work, I would cut time off from his screens. That's really the only thing he wanted to do at that point. He had stopped baking, he had stopped painting, he had stopped playing with his resin. He started having or showing very, very large anxiety attacks whenever I would do that. And that, by anxiety attacks, I mean a 13-year-old that's a foot taller than me, jumping up and down, screaming at the top of his lungs, swearing. He played games like Genshin Impact and Roblox, so he was with his friends. He had gone onto my computer and left his Discord open. And then I read the messages that he was talking with his friends. It's all about sex, violence, talk about suicide, and making light of it, speaking about his family and their beliefs in horrible ways, and it's just toxic relationships all around. As a teenager, I know that they're going to speak that way, but it was in a constant manner. Every single sentence had something about sex or violence or negativity. Every single person in his group of friends was either transgender, gay, bi, lesbian, pan. When he found these people and he all of a sudden found himself accepted, and he didn't even need to try, they were pulling him in, he completely molded himself to their personalities. So after I found all of these conversations and it was completely toxic, that's when he decided to tell me that he decided he was bi. If it ends up being the fact that you are bisexual, then that's what happens, but it doesn't need to be tied to the hateful, aggressive behavior that you're showing right now. It's not tied together. And the fact that you're talking about suicide and no one's talking about it is not healthy either. I need to get you away from these people. It doesn't make any sense. I cut him off from screens completely. He wasn't happy about it. So first it was the massive anxiety attacks and tantrums and hiding in the basement, and he wasn't happy about it. But during those conversations, he asked for help. So we found him a therapist. It wasn't a psychiatrist at that point, but we found him a therapist to talk to. The first one didn't work out. The second one that we brought him to, he actually said that he enjoyed and he would go back. I also found a school to go to. I decided to put all the kids back in school, and it was a private school. He started being happy. We started seeing him for more than just 5 minutes at dinner time. He gets a crush on a girl. He realizes that she already has a boyfriend. And I start noticing him get angry again and recluse, and he starts hiding. I'm getting messages from teachers saying he didn't hand in his homework, things like that. And so I walk into his room one day, and at this point, all laptops are locked. All tablets and things like that I know are locked. But I walk into his room and he has his ebook because he read a lot, and that wasn't weird. But unfortunately, what he has on there is not a book. He has a website open, and it's his messaging system, and he's back with this group of people. I saw the negativity come back. He wasn't working as well at school, so he's a really bright kid too. He was getting really good marks, and he hadn't been at school in 4 years. He didn't want to go to school anymore. He wasn't happy. He didn't like school, and I confronted him about it. I took away that screen as well. He was spraying me with the kitchen nozzle completely. So we've gone to the point that he's acting more aggressively. So it's not just the wall. He's actually doing something to me personally. I go to pull on his blanket a bit to get him out of bed because at this point he's missed 20 days of school because he doesn't want to get up, and we can't keep on doing this. And when I went to pull on his blanket, he actually got up and physically tried to throw a punch. So my husband says, okay, we're going to try something different. We're unfortunately going to do the opposite because he's getting really, really aggressive. He was in a better mood, but he has full access to that group of people. And then he started getting more and more tired because there was no cutoff. So he was staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning, right before exams, and then he failed his exams, and he needed to work on his French in order to be able to go forward in the next year. So that's what happened at the end of the year. The month of June is when things really, really went downhill. And it's already gone downhill because at this point he's run away a couple of times, leaving in the middle of snow-covered winter and going to a store that has Wi-Fi in order to be able to talk to these people, riding 2 hours on his bike to go to these people. These 2 times that he's run away, he's gone to his best friend's house, where the parents absolutely refuse to let us know where they live, phone number, He comes back home once. He's dressed in a crop top. And I have the conversation saying, look, I've told you that you're experimenting and you're finding yourself, but I want you to do it out of the house because that's not how we work here. Um, and that's the only thing that you agreed with, is that you didn't want to show your brothers what you're going through because you aren't happy and you don't want them in the same situation. And he looks at me and he doesn't care anymore. My husband comes home, they have an argument, everything calms down. He tells him, okay, well, at this point you can go see your friends. This was a really long day. I know that it's been tough today, so go see your friends, but you need to be home by 11. And turns to him and says, that's impossible. I'm not going to be able to do that. And he says, no, well, curfew's 11 o'clock, so be home by 11. And leaves, and he hasn't been home since. So I call the cops and I say I don't agree with him being there, and they turn around and tell me he's 14. We can't force him to do anything. I tell them he's talked about suicide with this young girl. Doesn't matter. I tell them that I have no access to him. It doesn't matter. I called the Youth Protection. Again, I get told that they can't force him to do anything. They tell me that I can send him to a youth home, but I can't send him. He needs to go himself. He stays at that home for a couple of weeks. The father finally convinces him to go to this group home, and their mandate is to bring the children home. That's supposed to be their mandate. So after a week, they ask us to go to a meeting with him, and they ask us to make a list of what we expect and how he should act at home. And he would do the same, and we would come together. So our list is you need to go to school. At this point, if you go back in person to the school, you're going to have to cut your hair. There's a dress code, and right now your hair isn't long for a look. It's because it's because you want to dress like a girl. It's a private Catholic school. Unfortunately, you can't. If you go in virtual, you don't need to cut your hair, but you still need to dress properly. You can't.
When did they start dressing as a girl?
The last time he ran away, and it wasn't even like a girl at that point. It was he tied his sweater in a crop top. That was the first time he's dressed like that ever. That was after having gone to this house for a night. He's never really spoken to those adults before. He's spoken to the girl, but in July was the first time he actually had conversations with those adults. If he wants to dress that way, he needs to do it out of the house because we don't want it influencing his brothers. And we all know that regardless, a 13-year-old that's the oldest in the house is going to influence his brothers. We can turn around and pretend that it doesn't influence kids, but regardless, anything that older brother does is going to influence him. So we go and give him this, and he runs out of the room twice, having to go to the washroom to vomit. And then this is when the man tells us that he's admitted that he has, when he gets anxious, he ends up trying to be thinner, which means it's bulimic. Like, he has a problem. He's admitted to them, which I've never known. Now, said that he's gay at this point. So within 4 months? So end of school, 3 months. End of school to August. We're in August now when he's at the home. He's gone from bi to completely gay. We go to pick him up, and this group home has given him feminine clothing. He's wearing a choker. He's wearing an off-the-shoulder pink shirt. He's wearing his hair in a very feminine fashion. I think he has eyeliner on. Cut off pants, very tight. And he has this little smirk on his face because he knows that we don't agree, and that was one of the only things that we put on the list that we don't want him doing in front of his brothers. Again, do it out of the house. I don't care. Not only is he wearing clothes, he is taking out a little black dress and showing it off to his brothers. And he's never worn girlish clothes before. He's never turned his male clothes into girly clothes before. He's never made an indication before that last time he ran away going to that house. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to wear what I want. I'm going to live the way I want. I have rights, et cetera, et cetera. He's never talked like this before either. So you know that someone has his ear now. It's almost like he's being coached on what to say to us. Of course he has rights, but you're still 14 in a family home, and there are rules in the house, and you just need to follow them, unfortunately. A week later, the youth protection calls us. They've retained what our son has brought to them, and as soon as he mentioned being part of the LGBTQ community, we are now psychological abusers. The youth protection brought us to tribunal because their mandate is to bring them back to the house, which again, as soon as he said he was gay, they didn't even try. They didn't find him help. They didn't find him a psychologist. Youth protection did not interview anybody other than our son, the group home, and the two adults that he never really spoke to until July. But now the youth protection are calling these two adults significant adults to our son, which is why they have decided to put him there for the length of the case. They ended it with my son was refusing to do his virtual school because the private school has virtual capabilities. But he was refusing because he's claiming that he was intimidated at that school because of being gay, but he never came out until this summer. The judge turned around and said, "You have parental authority currently, but I can and will remove it if needed. So do you accept to subscribe him to this public school?" And I looked at him and I said, "I don't really have a choice then, do I?" And he repeated the exact same thing. So I subscribed my son to public school. Now my husband and I have received a 12-page psychosocial evaluation, which is 12 pages of making us look like absolute monsters. Simply that we don't agree that this is actually how our son is. To our son, everything we have mentioned, or almost everything, is omitted. Instead of using the word that our son influences his brothers, they change it to corrupt, because obviously they've played the LGBTQ card, so now it's all LGBTQ. There's nothing about his bulimic problems. There's they do say suicide, but that's tied to the fact that we don't agree with his being gay. It's nothing about toxic behavior and aggressivity, like being angry constantly, to the point that he's actually hurt his brothers. No mention of the game that he played, talking about suicide. We can't accept our son back home if he's going to influence his brothers. And by influence is when he was here and running away, his 8-year-old brother decided to walk down an 80-kilometer-an-hour street and say that he was copying because he was angry at brothers. I'm talking about the day that he came back home and showed his brother a dress. His youngest brother was walking around with socks in his shirt looking like breasts, and turns around and tells me that this is a game that played with him on a regular basis, so he didn't know it was strange. I'm talking about the same 8-year-old brother turning around one morning and telling me he didn't want to eat because he wanted to be skinny, and his other brother saying, "Yeah, says that we're all fat and does this every morning." We, as parents, need to follow their recommendations. They haven't given us the recommendations that they're saying. They haven't given us anything specific. It's just vague. Just follow our recommendations. So with the 12 pages of essentially, we need to accept our son as he is and be sensitive to him, etc., they could turn around and say, let him do what he wants.
It's not only in school that we see people trying to groom children with all kind of propaganda, all the pronoun, all the LGBTQ plus sphere. We have a petition right now. If you want to make it stop, not only in the school system, but as well as in the global sphere, to just let kids be kids and just play and be who they are when they are ready for being who they are. Please go over stopclassroomgrooming.com. On this website, you can sign the petition, you can share it. We want to make the government aware that child don't need to be exposed to this grooming content.